Donald Trump looks like he's finally picked one side in the war between Russia and Ukraine, and that changes the whole conflict. Now, Trump has always wanted to usher in a new age of global peace, which means that up until now, he's been deliberately ambiguous on the war between Russia and Ukraine, and only focused on making sure both Zelensky and Putin come to the negotiating table. This week, though, that changed completely.
Billions of dollars worth of military equipment is going to be purchased from the United States, going to NATO, etc. They're paying for everything. We're not paying anymore. We're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%.
This is a massive change in policy. So, what does this signal about Trump's changing foreign policy mindframe, and what will it mean for the future of Russia and Ukraine? So let's go back in time to figure out just how important Trump's comments are. Joe Biden, or more accurately, the people who control Joe Biden's auto pen, were massive fans of Ukraine. From Russia's invasion of Ukraine until December 2024, the United States spent $182 billion supporting Zelensky and his government. Biden's speechwriters were adamant about Ukraine.
Today, the United States announced our latest tranche of artillery, ammunition, anti-tank weapons, and bridging equipment to help Ukraine succeed in the battlefield.
This became a hot election issue when Trump became the Republican candidate. Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance made foreign policy a central part of their platform. They wanted America to stop involving itself in forever wars and focus their attention and spending on domestic issues.
Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. And again, we're going to bring back that American dream for all of the young people in this audience and some of the old ones.
The American people chose Trump, who followed through with that strict anti-war agenda. He was no longer the world's sheriff, and neither was America the world's protector. He was going to put America first, and if that meant stepping on the toes of allies and disrupting the international political world, so be it. The difference between Trump's approach to Ukraine and the Biden administration's was made excruciatingly clear earlier this year, when the infamous meeting between Zelensky and Trump and J.D. Vance happened.
Thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
allowed.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
allowed.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
you invited me
if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
But what people really took issue with was Trump's statements on Vladimir Putin. Far from describing him as a global supervillain like other leaders, Trump would treat him as he would any other global leader, and would openly hope for a good working relationship with him.
Mr. President, what would you be willing to do if Vladimir Putin did not stick to the terms of any deal on Ukraine?
If he not what?
He did not stick to the terms of any deal on Ukraine, because he has a history of not sticking to his word when it comes to international agreements.
I think he'll keep his word. I think I've spoken to him. I've known him for a long time now. You know, we had to go through the Russian hoax together. That was not a good thing. It's not fair. That was a rigged deal, and had nothing to do with Russia. It was a rigged deal with inside the country, and they had to put up with that too. They put up with a lot. It wasn't just us. They had to put up with it, with a phony story that was made up. I've known him for a long time now, and I think he will. I don't believe he's going to violate his word. I don't think he'll be back. When we make a deal, I think the deal's going to hold.
It's not too different to how Trump would speak about conflicts in the Middle East. Whereas US leaders would traditionally purely take the side of Israel, Trump would not shy away from criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. The aim was peace, not necessarily the victory of the country closest to America. But what Donald Trump is realizing is that not everyone is as hopeful for peace at all costs as he is. A major test for this was when Israel sent bombs into Iran hours after a ceasefire was negotiated. Trump showed that when it came to peace, even friends could push him too far.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Which all brings us to what happened this week in Washington. Trump's total change in how he talks about Vladimir Putin shows that he is done operating as though he can get both sides of the negotiating table by being nice. His anger with Putin has been building for a while, and now it has exploded. He is now clearly on the side of Zelensky.
billions of dollars worth of military equipment is going to be purchased from the United States, going to NATO, etc. They're paying for everything. We're not paying anymore.
He wasn't done there. He also announced a major escalation in tariffs against Russia, saying that he will enact a 100% secondary tariff on Russia if they don't reach an agreement with Ukraine within 50 days.
We're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%.
Trump made it abundantly clear that he has lost any remaining faith he had in Vladimir Putin to act reasonably, and that he was also done being lied to and gaslit.
I go home, I tell the First Lady, and I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She said, oh, really? Another city was just hit. So it's like, look, he's, I don't want to say he's an assassin, but he's a tough guy.
Vladimir Putin fell for the same trick that Trump derangement syndrome left fell for, thinking that Putin could outsmart Trump. Putin thought if he could flatter Trump's ego enough and dangle enough carrots in front of the US president, that Trump would turn into his personal plaything. But Donald Trump's better than that, and he knows the difference between someone acting honestly and dishonestly. Trump, through this whole process, has said what he needed to say to get Putin to the negotiating table, even if it made commentators understandably uneasy that he was seen to be praising a dictator. But it's what Trump felt he needed to do for his long-term goals. He wasn't going to forget that Putin has never had America's best interests at heart, and nor was he going to forget that Russia is invading Ukraine and not the other way around. NATO are very pleased with Trump's new commitment to Ukraine and said so in the meeting.
This is really big. This is really big. You called me on Thursday that you had taken a decision. And the decision is that you want Ukraine what it needs to have to maintain, to be able to defend itself against Russia, but you want the Europeans to pay for it, which is totally logical. And this is building on the tremendous success of the NATO summit. The 5%, but also the decision to keep Ukraine strong and the decision to increase our defense industrial production.
That clip is a lesson to Putin. Don't praise Trump and then pressure him to do your bidding for you. Praise him publicly, then keep the friendly conversation going privately. Because if that man speaking then looks familiar, it's because he is.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
See, praise Trump publicly, sit back with no pressure or expectations, and Trump will see you're on the level. That's how you get what you want. Now, speaking of NATO, what will the MAGA movement make of this one? Trump has already started to disappoint them when he authorized the targeted bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities, leading to some of his biggest fans thinking he had turned heel and abandoned his promises about forever wars. I wonder what they're going to make about Trump reversing a Pentagon decision to freeze arms heading towards a foreign country. This could be another fracture moment between the MAGA movement and the man who epitomizes it. But where are we now? Russia now has under 2 months to come to the negotiating table. Some on the left are seeing this as Trump giving Russia a green light to end the war in 50 days without consequences. But Russia is simply not going to be able to do in 50 days what it hasn't been able to do in 3 years, especially when the US are giving them more and better weaponry than they were previously. They are going to have to buckle. There is no space left for them to move. This is now the closest we have come to peace in this conflict. Putin knows that he can't play Trump, and that means the war must be in its final days. For Trump, this change in rhetoric about Putin and Ukraine shows a changing foreign policy, especially when it's combined with how he's changed talking about the Middle East. Trump is not a disinterested spectator of global conflicts. He now involves himself. And if the two long-warring nations need someone to separate them, Trump has shown he's willing to be, well, that NATO guy may have had a point.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.